Hey, good Saturday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Johnston RV Center Saturday preview presented by Champy's World Famous Fried Chicken. Lance Taylor is in the middle. Jim Dunaway is on one side. I am on the other. I'm Ryan Brown. Thank you for joining us for week number 9 of the college football season. This is our last game in October, isn't it? This is our last college weekend of October. That just occurred to me before we started the show. I don't want to go. I would get on Dunaway for doing this, but I'm going to break the rule, Jimmy D. My Lord, is it flying by?
It seems like normal to me, Brownie. I'm not going to comment on that. I've been killed for 14 years for that. It goes by so fast because we wait for it for all season long, and then it gets here, and it goes by fast. And you know, I love basketball season, as LT will tell you about every show right now. It's just basketball season. I love it, but you play a lot of basketball games, and then it's like February, and you're like, okay, we feel like we know who the teams are. Let's play the tournament. And we still play another whole month of basketball before we get to the tournament. I wish football sort of laid out that way too, where it feels like, we know who everybody is. We get to the good stuff, and then we have to wait another month of games before the good stuff starts. It's never that way in football. Even the NFL's flying by this year.
I do think it'll be different, though, with the 12-team playoff, just because we have so many quality games and it gets expanded basically over a month. And much like college basketball, which, I get excited about in the month of February, that month of March is just amazing. So I do think December, January is going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah, because to your point, like you mentioned the NFL, Jim, the NFL playoffs are spectacular. Like you get there and it feels – they don't feel like they last forever, but it's a good month of football. And I'm with Lance. I am interested to see if we get the same thing out of the college football playoffs. One reason we get that out of the NFL playoffs is most of those playoff games are really close games, just like the whole NFL. So I hope that's what we get out of the college football playoff. And every time we throw up one of those, brackets that show what it would look like today, I look at most of those games. I'm like, boy, I think that'd be a really tight game. So maybe that's what we'll get.
Yeah, maybe so. I hope so. We're all experiencing this for the first time. I did a Sirius XM radio with Game Day earlier this morning, and they brought up a stat that you're speaking of close games. If that's where we're headed, Kalen DeBoer is used to this, right? 14 straight conference games dating back to his time as Washington. It's all been decided by 10 points or less. All this guy does is play close conference games. I don't feel like that's going to be one today in Missouri, and I know we'll talk about that game coming up. But if anybody seems to be built for the NFL model of close games, Lance, it's Kalen DeBoer, because his whole history in conference games at Power Fives, at the Power Five at Washington and Alabama has been built on 10 points or less, almost one possession games.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that last year, the last couple of years, was Washington had a like roster with a lot of those teams in the Pac-12, and it should be a little bit different in the SEC, but I do think with the transfer portal now, and we always talk about lack of depth, I think a lot of these teams now, when you look at the Missouris of the world and Tennessee up and coming a little bit, I think those are the teams that now, the roster is a little bit closer than it was with Alabama. But, after the loss last week in Knoxville, I think he's 13-3 against top 25s now. And you're right, almost all of those are one-possession games.
We will talk more about Alabama, Missouri coming up, and Auburn, Kentucky, of course. But I do want to point out that Pete Thamel reported overnight last night that it appears Brady Cook is going to give it a try today, and that is significant in this game. Now, Lance, you've watched the point spread. We watch it go up, 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 as those availability reports came out listing him as doubtful. And then overnight last night, once that report, that number dropped a little bit, didn't it?
It did, and some shops actually pulled, and I don't know if MyBookie was one of them. Some shops actually pulled the game down, and it was unavailable to wager for a few hours. It's back up at 17 right now. So
is it? Okay.
Yeah.
MyBookie.ag this morning had it at 15.5. As I wrote these down probably 45 minutes ago, it was 15.5.
Let me ask Lance, because Lance has done this for a long time. So people in Vegas, they pull it down. I assume then, and correct me if I'm wrong, they use their sourcing at that point to find out what they believe is really going on. They adjust the number and then put it back up, or put it back up at the number because they think they had it right to begin with. Is that
I think in majority of the situations, I think what happens is you get some interesting money coming in on a side, like we'll say Missouri, and then they're hearing the rumblings too that Brady Cook might play. So instead of getting bombarded at that number, whatever the number was at that point, 16.5, taking a bunch of Missouri action, 17, pull it down, see what's happening, reevaluate. And it looks to me that Vegas has found out that Drew Prine is going to get the start here, or they're just not putting a lot of stock in Brady Cook, because I did think this number would be more around 13.5, 14 if Brady Cook did get the start.
If it is a Drew Pine or a hobbled Brady Cook, if you're Kane Womack at that point, Alabama fans have been wanting more pressure consistently from this defense anyway. At that point, are you trying to heat him up all day long?
I just, even with a healthy Brady Cook, I don't know about you guys, the offense hasn't been the same as it was last year. They're just off. Like Luther Burden's not involved enough. They really miss Cody Schrader. This is just one of those games that sets up to me perfectly for Alabama. They've got to clean up their own self-inflictions, 60-second or 62 penalties right now, 5th in the FBS, 7 turnovers over the last 3 games. Got to clean that stuff up. But I did think, if the defense plays like it did in the first half in Knoxville last week, I thought the defense was fantastic in the first half. Now they gave up 24 and 265 yards in the second half. But that first half defense, that will give Missouri a lot of problems.
We'll talk more about that game. EG will join us in a bit. She'll be on her way over there. Before we get to the football, congrats to your Dodgers last night, Lance. What an incredible game that was. My goodness. I mean, just such late drama in that.
It was absolutely incredible. And, going into this World Series, I think a lot of people, they saw the numbers, the last 15 games, the last 30 games between these two. And boy, that lived up to the hype. I mean, going extra innings, getting the first walk-off in Grand Slam history. I think they showed the graphics of like 686 World Series games in the history of Major League Baseball. And for Freddie Freeman, I think even Braves fans, they probably hated it, but loved it at the same time, because what a moment for Freddie. And, if you asked him personally, it's got to be the top, right?
Oh, yeah. He was hesitant to answer that in the post game. But then when they circled back around, he said, this moment wasn't for me. It was for my dad, who always took me in through batting practice to me and all that. He was looking over at his dad, and that's when he teared up the most. I hope the frat boys survived over in Tuscaloosa after our time at the rabbit hole, because they were all on the Yankees. And I kept telling them, what are you guys doing? Dodgers, Dodgers, Dodgers last night. You got so much star power. So much star power.
I had the Yankees last night, Dunaway, and it didn't work out for me, but I was pulling for the Dodgers, obviously. It's one of those, it's a win-win, however you look at it. But yeah, I think those fraternity guys probably that was one of those, man. You don't lose it until you've actually lost it.
Yeah, I would tell you though, you got Ohtani at the plate, and you think, okay, this is going to be an iconic Ohtani moment, and then he fools him on the pitch, and that's an out, and then you're able to walk Mookie to get through Mookie Betts and to load up the bases, and then Freddie Freeman, who 6 days ago could barely walk, and then he does his best impersonation of Kirk Gibson. I just thought it was just fantastic.
Yeah, I said it out loud. They had the infield single to get Ohtani up with 2 on, and I just had a feeling that Ohtani was going to do exactly what Freddie did.
Yeah, I did too.
And then Verdugo makes a nice play, and then obviously because he goes into the stands, runners move up, so you got second and third, and back to Mookie Betts getting walked there and putting all the pressure on Freddie, who has not had a good postseason because he's been battling the ankle injury.
Yeah.
Well, big win for the Dodgers. Game 2 tonight. You guys let me know how that one turns out, okay? Will you be watching, Lance, as a Dodgers fan? You'll at least have it on, won't you?
I'll have it on a TV. Yeah, I don't know. This is sad. I don't know if I'll have volume. If it gets to a situation like it got last night, I'll probably flip it on the main. But
yeah,
I'm just trying to. It depends on how these games play out. That game goes off at 7, so you got the most important game of the day: LSU, Texas A&M, which I know we will get to. Penn State, Wisconsin's one of my 15 I've got today. Auburn, Kentucky. I mean, it should be a good game. I mean, I don't know what the meaning of that game is, or what that the repercussions, ramifications of that game. But yeah, it should be a good game.
All right, as we get to the Saturday games, a reminder: Johnston RV Center brings you the show. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. You can find Everything to go see America in an RV at Johnston RV Center. That includes travel trailers, $149 a month. They started $149 a month. Fifth wheel savings, $45,000 or more at Johnston RV Center. RV warranty forever. Make sure you got a lifetime warranty on anything new and qualifying pre-owned. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 indicator, johnstonrvcenter.com. We've got breaking news. This was kind of crazy. Pete Thamel breaking news. We'll get to it in a moment. Dunaway Champy's world famous fried chicken brings you the show as well.
No breaking news here. Champy's chicken, the best fried chicken in the South. Sterling does it the right way, brines overnight, and he cooks it to order. It's juicy. It's fantastic all the way to the bone. Mississippi Delta recipe tamales. It's Highway 119 in Alabaster. It's champyschicken.com.
Pete Thamel, ESPN, who is a breaking news machine on game days, reports his sources tell him Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze. Now, when you see a tweet start with sources, Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze, it gets your attention, doesn't it?
Yes.
Is battling an illness today, potentially food poisoning. Did not travel with the team to Kentucky. He's flying up solo today. Thamel says at this point he is expected to coach.
Wow, we've seen him coach from a bed before.
That's right, a hospital bed in the press box.
Yeah, didn't he go from dental chair to bed within 2 weeks?
Yeah,
other way around. From bed to dental chair. Yeah.
We've never seen him coach on his knees in the bathroom, throwing up into a toilet, though. So that would be the next step in that thing. And well, I'm sorry for Hugh. I don't know about you guys. Flu or food poisoning, or the throw up virus, whatever, stomach virus. Would you rather have the flu or that? I don't like throwing up, man.
Oh, I mean, I would rather be like shitting through a screen door than throwing up. Throwing up is the absolute worst.
Yep.
And even in a bad situation for Hugh going up there, I mean, having to watch both these offenses when you feel miserable. Like, I don't like doing anything. Maybe laying back, watching TV, but anything that you don't want to do when you're sick is awful.
All right, let's talk about the games and presumably healthy coaches. Ole Miss this morning, a 19.5-point favorite at MyBookie.ag as they play host to Oklahoma, Dunaway. Total of 49 at 11 a.m. ESPN game as the Rebs look to just keep winning, setting up that big Georgia game that will be for their playoff lives.
Do you think anywhere in his coordinating pass that Pete Thamel could have said Lane Kiffin had a stomach virus on game day?
Absolutely,
and is going to coach? Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss should win this football game, but I'm intrigued because Oklahoma's defense is really good. They've had zero support from the Oklahoma offense. Jackson Arnold is back. I don't think he ever should have lost his job. The big storyline has been the health of Oklahoma's receivers all season long, and they still will not be full strength at that. They have gotten a little help back, but still not full strength. So with Jackson Arnold back, does he have at least one more weapon he can throw to out there on the edge to create some offense? I don't think it'll be enough today, but I am more intrigued by this game that Arnold is the quarterback.
Well, look, I mean, if this game was in Norman and Oklahoma had any momentum at all and they did have healthy receivers, maybe you could make something of this. But, I think Ole Miss's defense probably the difference here, and Jackson Arnold just doesn't have any support. What's crazy is Ole Miss still leads the SEC in scoring, but they have yet to score a second-half touchdown in SEC play. Does that sound amazing to you guys?
So they have not scored a second-half touchdown in an SEC game this year. Is that what you just told me? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think they win this game with defense. I mean, Oklahoma last in the SEC in rushing, yards per play, third down conversions. They've given up 29 sacks, which is second worst in the FBS right now. And they're about to lose 4 of 8 for the first time. We talked about this yesterday since the John Blake era back in 1998. So if you're a Oklahoma fan and you're seeing what Texas is doing right now in the SEC, boy, you got to be frustrated.
All right, let's talk about game you've got on one of your 15, Lance. Rarely do you go 11 a.m. games. You've chosen to do this one. Notre Dame, Navy playing neutral site. It's technically a Navy home game, but neutral site. They're at MetLife Stadium this morning at MyBookie.ag. Notre Dame a 2-touchdown favorite. Total of 50, 11 a.m. ABC.
Yeah, I've gotten stubborn, we will call it, because I tried to sneak an 11 o'clock game in about a month ago, and I haven't hit one yet. So we might as well roll with this and see what direction it goes, because now when I see a game I really like at 11 o'clock, and if I don't play it, then I'm going to kick myself in the ass. Look, Notre Dame's getting better offensively, but this Navy team has been a machine with Horvath at quarterback. Notre Dame 30 points in 3 straight games. If Notre Dame can score points, watch out. I think Notre Dame is one of these teams with Riley Leonard, a veteran quarterback. If he can stay healthy, you've got Love running the football effectively right now. Notre Dame could be a dangerous out once you get to December if this offense continues to evolve.
Do you guys know, do they bring in the Navy midshipmen from Annapolis up to watch this game like you do? Is there a bunch of them in the stands to give a little bit of home advantage for Navy in this situation?
I think there is. Yeah.
So they bring them up like they do the Army game. So that would make it a little bit better of an atmosphere. Pro Notre Dame crowd, I bet, in this one. Playoff game. I like Notre Dame. Riley Leonard's health, though, has been a question mark all year long. He's been, I don't know if he's been 100% since the Texas A&M game. So he's been hit or miss for me.
This has been one of those, I guess you call it a rivalry because they play enough, but it's almost like Kentucky and Florida, just how much one side has dominated this. I mean, 11-1 straight up their last 12 against Navy. I do believe this Navy team is, it's maybe the best Navy team we've seen. Can I say? Well, I don't want to know. You know, we said this about Vanderbilt, and I'll stick by it. I know Dunaway says no, but this might be the best Navy team I've seen. I know it's the best Army team I've seen.
Yeah, I think it's the best Navy team in my lifetime. I'll go. You were going to go back to Keenan Reynolds' Navy team. Is that what you're going to do, Coach
Keenan Reynolds?
Really,
really good. But this Horvath kid, and then Daly running the Army offense.
I mean,
if Notre Dame.
If you're saying a lifetime, yes, but I mean, obviously Roger Staubach and those teams were pretty good. Yeah.
All right, Dunaway, Nebraska's at Ohio State. You were on. The Huskers last week did not go well against Coach Sig, and all they got to do is rebound and go to the Horseshoe, 11 a.m. on Fox. That's the big noon kick. 25.5 this morning. Ohio State's favored at MyBookie.ag, a total of 48.5.
You know, I showed it to Taylor last week, but somebody DM'd me and said, "Hey, I'm listening on the app. I can't believe you picked Nebraska to play in to go beat Indiana. Can't believe you're landmining Nebraska." I really thought they would play better. You know, we got a lot of Nebraska friends here locally, and wives of friends, bar owners, and just the number of Nebraska people here in the city of Birmingham, where we originate our show from, has always been amazing to me. And they were all disappointed in me that I picked Nebraska last week. I never thought it would look like that. Ohio State's a better team. Will Howard's, he's played good quarterback. I thought he played well enough, except for one play, to win the Oregon game, which has been their toughest game yet. I want this to be a good game today, but sadly, I don't think it will be. I like Ohio State.
Yeah, and I brought this up. I mean, overall, Nebraska's lost 16 straight to ranked opponents. I mean, if you're a Nebraska fan, it's really sad days. And you're hoping at 5-2 they get better under Matt Rule, and I think they will get better, but and I know Matt Rule has not coached great programs from Temple to Baylor to now Nebraska, but 2-21 straight up against ranked teams.
Yeah.
But boy, this would be a massive upset. I mean, would it completely shock you guys?
I wouldn't completely shock me. No. It's college football.
Brown says, yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, Rayola's hurt. I think he's playing hurt. Ohio State, outside of that Oregon game, has just been destroying people. And Dunaway, I just saw what you mentioned, Nebraska, Indiana. It's hard to get that out of my mind. And if Indiana can beat them that way, I'd be stunned if Nebraska wins this game. Now,
well, I mean, the only thing I would
say, being out at left tackle, the left tackle, you lose that can disrupt your offensive line. Just go look at Alabama versus USF. You lose one player anywhere in that rotation, you start plugging and playing, it can get chaotic. That would be the path to victory for Nebraska.
Well, and the only thing I would say, we've already had a bigger live dog win outright this week. In Kennesaw State, with their first FBS win ever over a team that had won 17 consecutive regular season games. So, I don't think it would happen. I think they could play it 100 times, and maybe Nebraska wins one of those. But maybe this is that one game today.
But Ryan Day doesn't lose these games, Brown. I mean, he doesn't.
I know. I mean, it's got to be a big game for him to lose it. Now, he loses plenty of those, but that's what it's got to be. Indiana, Lance, your guy, Coach Sig, 5.5-point favorite. It's funny. I was looking at this total of 54 as they play Washington. Game day in town. You're like, oh, they're doing a Fox game? No. Oh, this must be on ABC then. No, it's a Big Ten Network game. Like when they were picking games before the season, nobody thought this was going to be an important game.
No, and look, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's very important for Indiana. But, for Washington, rebuilding right now under Jed Fish, coming off a bye. That was the 11 o'clock game I backed 2 weeks ago, and they lost 40-16 in Iowa State. Brought this up. This is the second time they've played over the last 20 years in the Central Time Zone, 11 o'clock game. And you saw what happened 2 weeks ago. But this Indiana team, man, I mean, not only are they 7-0 for the first time since 1967, and by the way, the crowd looks really good in Bloomington, but they've won all 7 games by double digits. You've got a backup quarterback in Taven Jackson. The moment didn't look too big, but you guys have seen this before where a guy will come in when Curtis Rourke goes down in the middle of the game, and they don't have time to really think about it and process it, and they just come out and they play. They read and react, and they play extremely well, but then they have a full week to digest being a starting quarterback, and things get a little different because they get a little tighter. So you just wonder how tight Jackson will be here and how they run this offense for him. But I'll tell you, man, I think it's a good Hoosier team. It's been fun to watch. They haven't really played anybody of substance. Their current opponents that they played through 7 weeks, 13-23. But Kirk Cignetti knows how to not only win 16-1 straight up his last 17 games as a head coach, but he's 14-3 against the number. I completely stayed away from it. I probably would have played Washington, but I think it's a dangerous team to bet against right now.
I understand why you would play Washington. 2 things. We can't make fun of the game being on the Big Ten Network because one of the more interesting SEC games today, Texas and Vandy, 2 ranked teams, are on the SEC Network today, so we can't make fun of that. And the other thing is, do you guys ever get into situations where your body clock, forget clock on the wall, but your body clock is, like if you've been like E.G., who will join us in a moment, went over to see Taylor Swift. At some point you make a decision, you know, do I go to sleep or do I just stay up? If you're the Washington players, do you just like, okay, 9 o'clock body, 9 o'clock kick my body clock? Do I really go to sleep? Or should I just stay up and pull an all-nighter and try to win this game?
Yeah, I don't think the all-nighter is ever a good call. I've done it. 30 minutes of sleep doesn't do much for you, but man, that's rough to do. But yeah, these body clock games I think are real.
Yeah.
Dunaway, Lance said he almost pulled the trigger on Washington. I'm about to make him feel bad here. You ready for this?
And, well, by the way, real quick, body clock thing, because it was the latest that Rutgers had ever played a game last night, and I made a point to look. I think it was 141 when I got in bed last night. I mean, that game just drug, and and if you're an Eastern time guy, so that game goes almost till 3 a.m. That's got to affect those kids.
Yeah,
the game was already over at that point, so it didn't really matter.
But at that point, just in case it's not over with, Giano should have worked all week long calling his 2-minute drill the last call. Last call, guys. Last call.
Hey, by the way, Lance, David Payne Purdom covers gambling for ESPN. Indiana has attracted more bets and more money to cover the spread against Washington than any other team in America today. So Indiana, the most bet team in America today.
That's a little surprising just for a couple of – it's not a brand. They're not playing a brand. It's the early slate, which doesn't attract nearly as much money as the later slate. That's fascinating to me. But you look out there, there's no – like that's an obvious – like if you're a guy that's never really, done any sports wagering and you're in Las Vegas and you look at this card, I would think that game is as random as Central Florida hosting BYU. That game has got to be insanely lopsided.
All right, Johnston RV Center brings you the show. I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Always online at johnstonrvcenter.com. And you can right now get travel trailers as low as $145 a month. Fifth wheels, savings $45,000 and more. RV warranty forever. Make sure you got a lifetime warranty on anything new or qualifying pre-owned at Johnston RV Center. I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, johnstonrvcenter.com. Also, Dunaway, Champy's world-famous fried chicken.
That's one thing I loved about Emily Grace McWhorter, meeting her, is that she told me about Grandma McWhorter frying up that fried chicken, one of her great memories back in the day. Champy's Chicken, Highway 119 in Alabaster. You can go by and get Sterling, frying it up like your old Southern grandma does. That's what Sterling does. Great food, great for tailgate as well.
What Granny have with that chicken, E.G.? What'd she have?
I don't know. I never had it.
I'll tell you what, E.G. and I don't know if you guys remember in the summer, we went and delivered that order because I finished second in the bracket challenge. I had to deliver that order somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Georgia. And we had to go through Macon, and we stopped at S&S Cafeteria.
So good.
And you know what E.G. had? It was the most random thing, but you know what she had that reminded her? Was it your grandmom that used to make it, E.G.?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the most random thing, guys. And I don't know how much either of you have eaten it. It was rhubarbs.
Yeah, rutabaga.
Rutabagas. I'm sorry, rutabagas.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like a poor man's sweet potato, right?
Yeah, you could say it's orange in color, a fall
Yeah.
harvest. Actually, I think it might be a summer harvest. It's delicious, a little
Yeah.
sweeter. The texture isn't as dense. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, there's a local place that I'll eat sometimes before I go to Odie's, and they do a seasonal vegetable plate, and they'll throw it on there every now and then. We do have to mention, how long did it take you to put the body in the hair today?
I know. I was hoping you noticed the shampoo commercial. So my hair, fun fact. So I have not, well, I don't know if I want to share this. I
Sure you
go a few days without washing my hair because I have a lot of hair, right? And so when it gets, day 4, day 5, it's perfect for the volume. So that's
Okay.
yeah. So
So
just don't wash my hair.
you're every 3 days?
I'm every like 5 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 to
Yeah.
6.
I've
That's the way
never
I roll.
understood that. Maddie's every 3 days, but
Yeah.
I don't understand that. But
I was hoping you noticed a shampoo commercial when I was curling. I said, Lance is going to notice this, and I appreciate it.
I got it.
Dunaway, any hair tips for EG?
Yeah.
Not at all. Is your hair naturally straight, or are you a curly and have to do the straightener?
I'm somewhere in between, a little bit of a wave pattern, if you will.
Okay.
I'm sure she hates wind and any kind of rain, though, as
Yes.
most women do.
Yeah.
Yes, the wind. Oh, I hate riding in cars with windows down. Not even a fan, even a little bit.
Soft top Jeeps?
No.
No top on? No.
I
Wow.
hate it.
So best scenario for you, SEC Media Days, Nashville, Atlanta, you jump in the back of an Uber and the guy's got the windows rolled down and refuses to roll them up, and you've got to go interview a coach.
I'm getting out of the car. I'm walking at that point.
It's hot in Nashville that time of year. All right, 2:30 ABC. You're headed to Bryant-Denny Stadium today, EG, and you can see her coverage both at NextRound Live on social media, covercrimson.com as well, post-game show with Clint and Mick and the gang. You were with us in Tuscaloosa yesterday, EG, and it was a fun crowd. I don't mean to diminish it, but it wasn't the same feel, at least for me. I don't know if Lance and Jim would agree or if you would agree, EG. Same feel as that Alabama-Georgia game. Obviously, that Alabama-Georgia game is the biggest game in the country, but, crowd perked up. We saw some Missouri fans there. Should be an interesting homecoming atmosphere in Tuscaloosa.
There was still a bustle for sure, but it would be hard to replicate, especially Georgia, Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But I did think that we had a great turnout. The college students will always come where there's free beer, and we definitely were offering that with Bud Light. The Missouri buses passed us, and that was a fun little moment. We have a video of it, and there was some colorful language being exchanged from, our patrons at the rabbit hole towards the Missouri buses. But what I love, and I didn't really know this about Tuscaloosa, was in the mornings when we've been doing those shows down there, people are out and about early, walking, running. There's Missouri fans, and it seems like they enjoy kind of taking in the sights and sounds of Tuscaloosa before things get started. You mentioned it's homecoming week. Homecoming obviously has a very special place in my heart. I love seeing all of the pomping. That's what I was trying to tell y'all yesterday. It's called pomping. And that's what they make those canvases. And some of them are super, super detailed. So I'm excited to see the festivities today.
Yeah, I did agree with you, Brown. I thought the buzz was not what we had the day before the Georgia game. And I got caught off, once we got down there, I was like, damn, people are drinking early. And I forgot that we moved our show back.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I was like, God, the sun's in a weird place for 9 a.m. And I was like, no, Brown, it's noon.
I was telling Jacqueline from Adams, I was like, I thought people are sitting here pounding out at 9 o'clock. And the only way there's one place you can get away with drinking at 9 o'clock without getting judged.
Vegas?
An airport.
Oh, an airport. Yeah. Okay. I thought it was Vegas.
Yeah, really. I mean, if you see somebody in a TGI Fridays at 7 a.m. and they're about to board a flight and they're pounding out, it doesn't matter what it is. it could be Jägermeister, and you'd be like, okay, that makes sense.
EG, what are you looking for from Bama today? What are you looking to see?
I think a lot of us are looking for the same thing, the run game. See if they can establish that against Missouri. It's proven to work. Texas A&M was able to find success against Missouri with it and get back to the basics with the offense. That's what I'm looking for today. Jalen, I think we'll all have our eye on him a little more closely, seeing if he can get the ball out a little earlier, be a little more consistent today. We haven't really seen this pattern of, behavior from him this season. The last 3 games have not been pretty. Looking for it to be a bounce back game, especially as they head into this bye next week.
Yeah, I would watch watch our social media platform at NextRound Live for pregame, because EG will have some video up of Jalen warming up, and she'll be focused on that just to see, the buzz all week long. Is he hurt? Is he not? He doesn't show up anywhere on the availability report, so that means he's He's not probable. He's not questionable. He's not doubtful. He's not out. He's there, ready to go. So, that 100% in pregame warm-up will be something a lot of people are watching, because for whatever reason, everyone's been talking about his health and the, whether or not he's injured at all. And there's been no indication, I don't think. You talked to the coaches and the players that he's injured at all, right?
No, there's been no indication from mine. That is personal conversations, obviously, that I've had in the facility with coaches and athletes and those media availabilities. And there's no indication. There's also no indication, and I think it's important to say this, that he's lost the locker room in any way. I think that's been a popular, topic for the fan base right now, is what does it look going forward at the quarterback position? From coaches to teammates, everyone has Jalen Milroe's back, and they were very adamant about that this week.
I did think it was interesting when we asked Tyler Booker on Monday if Jalen was 100%. He said, yeah, and then he backed it up. I mean, and he said that everybody's banged up, so it's not really misleading. But if you're Kalen DeBoer, why do you not put him on the availability and say that he's probable or questionable, even just because there was a buzz out there that maybe Ty Simpson gets a look, just to put that in Eli Drinkwitz's head?
Yeah. I don't get that's above my pay grade, I would say, to be in the mind of Kalen DeBoer and availability reports. But I think you do make a good point about, from a mental aspect, to put it in the other coach's head that, hey, you may or may not see him, could be a strategy. We've seen a lot of things this year in terms of strategy that have been a little unique, and I wouldn't count that out.
I will say, consistently, Alabama's availability report is the smallest one out there. I mean, there's normally like 2 or 3 players on it, and then you see some others like Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Sometimes they got 20 players on there. So everybody's using it differently. And I don't know. I'm not saying anybody's lying or not. I'm just saying everybody's using it differently.
And I do want to add, before I hop off, that at the beginning of the season, Coach DeBoer, one of the things that he emphasized to the media was that he's going to be really transparent about that. And, first few weeks of the season, he would start off every press conference before he was even asked, hey, this person's out. This person is dealing with this, X, Y, Z, and he's kind of continued that as well. So I would keep that in mind as more discussions swirl around Jalen Milroe, that Kalen DeBoer has been very adamant that he's going to be truthful with what the situation is with that.
All right, EG, Next Round Live for all the social media from over in Tuscaloosa. Also, postgame, covercrimson.com, the Cover Crimson YouTube channel with Mick and Clint and the gang there at Cover Crimson. That also have Coach DeBoer's postgame from over in Tuscaloosa. Be careful, EG. We'll see you after the game.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks. That's Emily Grace McWhorter. Again, you can see her at covercrimson.com and on social media at Next Round Live. Lance, one of your plays, by the way, is in this Missouri-Alabama game. 2:30 ABC, 15.5. Depending on where you find it, it's moved around a lot. This morning, MyBookie.ag, it was 15.5, total of 51.5. And this is one of your 15 plays at lanceslock.com.
Yeah, what gives? Nick Saban was really good against the number, and so far, Kalen DeBoer 1-3 against the spread in SEC games. But since 2012, and I brought this number up yesterday, after playing Tennessee, Alabama is 12-0 straight up. Their following opponent and 10-2 against the number. So one of those trends will break. It's a massive number. I mean, I guess before the season, I probably would have told you the number's 14-17, knowing that Missouri was going to be around a top 10 team. Obviously, they've dropped a game, so they've dropped all the way to 21st. But this number, I guess, isn't surprising.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a great point. Back in July, you probably would have said the number was about like the number is. So I think it's personnel there at that point. The question to me is Luther Burden against Alabama's secondary. We saw last week that there were Tennessee receivers in the first half 3 times behind the Alabama secondary. The quarterback could not connect on those throws for touchdowns. Can Luther Burden get behind anybody? And can Brady Cook or Drew Pine make the throw to connect and burn Alabama deep? That's one thing I'll watch, because he has not been the same, but he's still one of the best receivers in college football in Luther Burden, and he is a guy that Alabama defense will have to focus on today.
Yeah, and I think ladder is more important. Like, can those guys make the throws? And mentally, like, Luther Burden's got to get more involved. And some of this is on Eli Drinkwitz. But if I'm telling Luther Burden, and you guys know the impact of a dominant wide receiver at the NFL level. I mean, it was, it was highlighted Thursday night when the Rams get both Puka and Cooper Kupp back. I mean, it was just night and day, the offense going for a season-high 30 points. Luther Burden is a guy that can be a 1 at the NFL level, and he's a guy that I thought would be a top 10 pick, and he still might ultimately be that guy. But if I'm Luther Burden down the stretch, I really want to get more involved. And I think Eli Drinkwitz, Luther Burden, whoever the quarterback is, Cook or Pine, they've got to get on the same page. But Luther Burden could have a day against the secondary.
Dunaway, this is another game Lance has up at lanceslock.com. Up in Eugene, 2:30 CBS game. Oregon playing host to Brett Bielema and Illinois. Surprising start for the Illini, but they run into an Oregon team that's number one in the country. 21.5. They are favored in this game. 54.5 is the total. Jimmy D, the Ducks a 3-touchdown favorite in this one.
Yeah, I guess there are two things that would scare me about this game, and it's not the outcome. If I was gambling on this game, it would be Oregon has shown me a couple of times this year, including against Idaho, that they don't always, that was early in the year, but they don't always play up to their capabilities against a lesser opponent. And then Illinois, perception-wise, is a lesser opponent, but they're a top 20 team, much improved at quarterback and Luke Altmaier. But also, Brett Bielema can manipulate a clock. So 21's a lot in a Big Ten game where some coaches are really good at manipulating the clock and shortening games. So if you're not precise on every possession for Oregon, this could get into a situation where 21 may be a tough number. But I think the Ducks have hit their stride. And I think they're the Pacific Northwest football pride. I don't know if that's their fight song or not, but I think Oregon looks the part now. And Dylan Gabriel has settled into the new offense. Everyone's getting accustomed to him, and he's accustomed to them around him. And I think Oregon's a team to be reckoned with for the national championship.
Yeah, look, you got to give Dan Lanning a credit a couple of weeks ago when they beat Ohio State, because that was a big game. He hadn't been super successful in those big games, but back to not losing games you're not supposed to. He doesn't do that. As double-digit favorites, he's 22-1 as a head coach straight up, and he's 15-8 against the number. I do think Oregon is rounding into a really good team. Again, I don't think there's any elite teams. I think you can find elite players, obviously, elite units. But like an airtight team right now, I mean, Oregon is as close to one as there is.
Lance, another one of your 15 plays is in Orlando, 2:30 kick on ESPN. The Gus Bus, a favorite over undefeated and leading the Big 12 BYU. 2.5-point favorite. I'm sure that number got a lot of people's attention. 53.5 is the total there. When you see a UCF team coming off a loss, they've been disappointing. They've had to bench their quarterback, and they're a favorite in a game over BYU. I'm sure a lot of people call that a stinky line. Is what they call that.
And it's going to be difficult for Central Florida to rebound from blowing a 14-point third quarter lead and then being up 8 late in that game, a game they should have won, where, they had 354 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's hard to do that on the ground and not win that game. But they lead the Big 12 right now in rushing, over 280 yards per game. RJ Harvey leads the conference, 890 yards, almost 7 yards a clip. And then you look at BYU, they got gashed for 269 in a game they should have lost. So this game could have flipped around. It should really be Central Florida coming in with the win, BYU coming in with the loss. But you've got number 11 undefeated as a dog in the bounce house. I think this will be a lopsided money game where the public is all over BYU. And we've doubted BYU the majority of the year. They continue to go out and find ways to win games. We'll see what happens. This will be I don't know how you guys feel about Gus. I've got a feeling this could be his last year. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I don't know his buyout situation there. I know UCF got winning a lot of football games with their last 2 coaches, specifically the one before Heupel, and this is not what they signed on. Now Gus has the excuse we've moved up to the Big 12, so the competition is different. BYU's run defense is where this one's won or lost today. Can BYU force Gus and that offense to take to the air predominantly? And I think that's why UCF can win it today, BYU's rush defense.
Dunaway, Texas on the road for the first time as an SEC team in Nashville, playing a team, as we discussed, actually has a winning record against them. Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt is a 17.5-point dog at home, total of 51, 315 SEC Network. The Horns 17.5-point favorites, Jimmy D, trying to bounce back from that disappointing loss against Georgia.
Yeah, I love that stat that LT gave us yesterday, that Vandy's got the winning record against Texas. Then I love the fact that we discussed it yesterday, and you have name brands Michigan and Oklahoma that Texas has won, but Vanderbilt is a better team than Michigan and Oklahoma. So if Texas wins the game today, this actually would be the best team that Texas has beaten to date. Losing the Georgia game, this Vandy team better than Michigan, this Vandy team better than Oklahoma, and that it probably starts at quarterback, right, LT?
Yeah, and I think, with Diego Pavia, I mean, obviously the New Mexico State impact on this program has been tremendous, but I think we're deep enough in the season where you can say Vanderbilt is a really, really tough out, and I think they're well-deserved of being a top 25 team. The Georgia State game is still baffling, but every game, much like Kalen DeBoer, Vanderbilt plays is a one-possession game, it seems like. And back to that number I gave you yesterday. So Vanderbilt's 4-0 all-time against Texas in Nashville, but they haven't played a game in Nashville since 1925. So different era. This Texas defense only giving up 9.7 points per game. So Pavia and Vanderbilt, they're going to have a problem moving the football. I don't see Vanderbilt winning this game. I think they could hang around. I'd love to see it. I mean, what kind of chaos do we have if Vanderbilt wins this game?
Oh, boy.
It would be a fun chaos, so I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
Well, then is Vanderbilt in play for SEC championship game?
They've only got the one conference loss. Am I right about that?
To Missouri in overtime. That would be it.
Yeah, I mean, if they win this one, they certainly are.
Yeah.
Because
by the way, go ahead and finish that thought, Brown.
Well, I was just going to say real quick, Dunaway, a Texas loss would really help all the two-loss teams. I mean, now that drops Texas into that two-loss category because Texas is a one-loss team that, if you look at their schedule, now A&M will have a lot to say about this at the end, but they could skate through with one loss and then rematch against Georgia. But boy, a two-loss Texas, that would make a lot of two-loss teams happy.
Well, let me ask you guys this: just a casual college football fan out there, do you think they would rather see Vanderbilt spring the upset or Navy knock off Notre Dame? Because Navy knocking off Notre Dame puts Notre Dame out. It puts one of our military academies still undefeated. But on the other side, I mean, Vanderbilt would beat two top fives at home for the first time. Anybody's done that in the season. I said this a couple of times this week, since 2017 Auburn, and it really would throw a wrench in the SEC. Which game do you guys think people would rather see the upset?
I think they'd rather see Vandy beating Texas. Is that one of my options?
Yeah.
Because they hate Notre Dame, but Texas is in the SEC right now. And I don't think anybody wants Texas to walk into this league and think it's easy.
I think
losing to Vanderbilt would be a dick kick after getting embarrassed at home.
Oh, yeah. It's two straight losses. Yeah,
it would be. But to your point, a loss by Notre Dame frees up a spot possibly for another SEC team.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's go to the night slate. I'm sorry?
Quickly, back when last time Texas and Nashville played in Nashville, does it surprise anybody that the Birmingham metro area was larger than the Nashville metro area back then? That doesn't surprise anybody, does it?
I guess not. Yeah, Nashville was a fast-growing city. Yeah.
I mean, in 25, Birmingham might have been as big as Atlanta.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty close to Atlanta, and Nashville didn't have the booming all the way down to Franklin that it has now. And back then, Birmingham was a pretty big southern city. It's funny how Nashville continues to grow and grow and grow and grow.
Scott Forrester says Vandy making the SEC championship game before Ole Miss would be amazing. It really would be.
Can you imagine Ole Miss fans if Vanderbilt snuck in there and they're like
before they did?
Yeah. Hey, listen, and there was I forget what the topic was, and I know we have a graphic somewhere Forrester does in his file. But we all drafted. Remember, we all drafted 5 teams. And I remember saying, everybody drafts 5 teams. That gets 15. Vanderbilt's off the table. Nobody can pick Vandy.
I remember that. Yeah, because we had to make it 15 so we could all draft 5. And you're like, let's just throw Vandy out. Nobody wants
off
them
the
anyway.
table. Everybody's got to pick somebody else.
I don't know if you guys are looking there. They just did the playoff predictor for this Missouri-Bama game on game day. And they're saying with a win, Missouri 47% is in the college football playoff. Alabama with a win 52% in. I think I get that with Bama because it really does come down to a coin toss with LSU. But what does Missouri have left on that schedule? I would think just the way they're playing, they've got multiple landmines coming up in the month of November.
I'll see if I can find it real quick.
I can pull it right now as I ask the question.
Yeah. Do that real quick while as we move to the night slate. I remind everyone about Johnston RV Center, I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. That's where you find them, and you can find them online at johnstonrvcenter.com. You can go see American and RV from Johnston RV Center. They love the United States military the way we do. Even if we pick against Vandy or Navy, doesn't mean we don't love the Naval Academy and all those great midshipmen that are there, or Army as they play. They love the United States military there. A very, very, very small way of showing their gratitude is to give you a great discount. So ask more about that if you're active duty or a veteran at Johnston RV Center, I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, johnstonrvcenter.com. And Dunaway, Champy's world famous fried chicken.
I'll let Lance finish that thought real quick because it looks easy, but I don't guarantee them winning all four of those.
I don't. So Oklahoma in Columbia, that's a win. In Columbia, South Carolina, that's a difficult game that I think will be around to pick if South Carolina continues to play like this. Mississippi State seems like they're getting a little bit better. That game's in Starkville. And then, you can laugh all you want. It is kind of a rivalry game to end the season with Arkansas in Columbia against Missouri. So I do kind of feel like Alabama, though, if they beat Missouri, it comes down to a one-game situation. For Missouri, it probably comes down to that game at South Carolina. But there are losable games on that schedule.
Yeah. Champy's Chicken, Highway 119 in Alabaster. Never a loser for your tailgate. Always get Sterling to take care of you. And perfect on game days. If you're at home with a family or friends watching the game, Sterling can take care of you as well. Champy'sChicken.com, Highway 119 in Alabaster. Don't forget the great appetizers that include the sausage cheese pickle plate. Also, the unbelievable wings he has there, and the Mississippi Delta recipe tamales. It's Highway 119, locally owned, right there, same location for over 10 years, Champy'sChicken.com.
All right, there are 5 night slate games we are going to talk about. Lance has a play on 4 of the 5. He's got more plays than that at Lance's lock. We'll start with one. He does not have a play on Dunaway. Miami playing host to Florida State. This used to be a great rivalry back in the day. It is not right now. Miami a 3-touchdown favorite, total of 54.5. 6 o'clock ESPN. Miami plays everybody close, Jim, but thinking Florida State could keep this game close. So that's maybe a bridge too far for me.
We didn't get a chance to answer the question yesterday, but I brought it up about buy-in from the Florida State players. And at some point, so many portal players, the 5 Alabama transfers who are definitely not used to being in this situation. I just don't know where the headspace is right now. Mike Norvell has practically apologized for the way this team has been and has been defensive on where the program is right now. Hard to believe how different 365 days is for Mike Norvell in this game, in this contest. This seems like this is the game that Cam Ward comes out and does everything right against a downtrodden Florida State team. I don't expect this one to be close. I like Miami big in this one.
I think so too. I mean, Florida State just can't do anything offensively, and not only do they not have a playmaker at quarterback, they continue to make so many mistakes, and that was witnessed Friday night in Durham last week against a Duke team that they lost outright to. And this Florida State team is just an absolute mess. And you really wonder, I mean, Mike Norvell, the guy that was bitching and complaining along with the fan base last year about not getting in. And since Jordan Travis went down, I mean, this program is completely unraveled.
It really has.
I mean, since Selection Sunday, they had all the opt-outs, the blowout loss to Georgia on national TV. And then you flip around the very next games of week 0, everybody watching lost to Georgia Tech. And then it's just been downhill since.
So next week, the second biggest game of the Big Ten this year, one of the biggest games in the country, is Penn State plays Ohio State. Big Ten on the line, college football playoff on the line. But all that could get messed up tonight if Wisconsin can spring the upset in Camp Randall. They are a 6.5-point home dog, Lance, a game you're playing at MyBookie, or excuse me, at lanceslock.com. Anybody can play it at MyBookie.ag. 47.5, 630 NBC game. Boy, if Penn State's looking ahead at all, this is a dangerous spot for them.
Yeah, and I don't think they are. I mean, you look at Wisconsin, how they've played over the last 3 weeks, 3-0. They've only given up 16 points, outscoring their opponents 117-16. Tyree Walker has been the difference running the football in this Phil Longo offense. But really, it is about the defense. Penn State is coming off a bye. I still don't know how they won that USC game in the Coliseum in overtime, 33-30. And I don't know. That game was all about Tyler Warren, the tight end. Do they run everything through him again, or is it more about Allen and Singleton running the football? I think this crowd is going to be super hyped up. Maybe Luke Fickell at this point, his biggest game in a year plus in Wisconsin. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's completely. I mean, I felt like the Alabama game was a big stage for him, but I don't know that Wisconsin fans, Jim, felt like they were going to win that game, or it didn't affect the Big Ten. I don't know about that, but this one, you've the odds makers tell you got a shot at this one. And what would this do for your program to beat Penn State like this?
Yeah, it was almost like they went to the Alabama game, and it was almost like a parade. Let's go see this Alabama SEC program play in Camp Randall. And then the quarterback gets hurt first drive, and you sort of watch the game at that point. This is family. This is blood. I will tell you, though, we're all on Wisconsin on how they've turned things around since that Alabama game. That's this 3-game win streak: Purdue, Rutgers, Northwestern.
What's not to like about that? I mean, what are you taking a shot at their schedule?
I mean, pretty good teams to get right on.
Yes.
I'm hoping for Wisconsin in this game, but my gut tells me State, good time to have a bye week so they can be focused on Wisconsin and not caught at the end of a long game looking ahead to Ohio State. Bye week to focus on Wisconsin, then get to Ohio State.
Yeah, but going back a month, I will say watching Wisconsin at the Coliseum, and this hasn't been the way USC typically has done things this week or this year. They were getting dominated. I mean, I think Wisconsin was up 21-6 at the break, and then USC had the big second half. So kind of saw a flash of what Wisconsin has done over the last month in that game in the first half. So if they can play like that against the way they played against USC, I think this is going to be a really interesting game.
But it's that 32 points they give up in the second half that still scares me, right?
Yeah. Dunaway, biggest game in the country. Another game Lance is playing at lancesline.com, 6:30 ABC kick. Texas A&M all the way down to a 1-point favorite this morning at MyBookie.ag. Total of 54.5 as they play host to the Bayou Bengals. This is, it's just massive. It's not an elimination game for both teams, but boy, one of these teams wins here, and they have got, either team that wins here, I should say, has got a great path to Atlanta if they can take care of business.
Do you think it bothers anybody around the country that preseason number 6 versus preseason number 7, not in the nation, preseason number 6 and number 7 in the SEC media standings are playing each other this weekend, and it's being called the biggest game in the nation? Don't they sit around the rest of the country and say, how many times can these SEC folks say they've got the biggest game in the nation? Happens a lot. Happens a lot, right? And this is another one.
What's fascinating about this game, and I think it is two outstanding coaches in Brian Kelly and Mike Elko, and I think their teams have gotten a lot better. And I don't think these are the best rosters we've seen with either one of these teams over the last decade. But winner of this game, do you think SEC fans still are concerned with the winner of this game? Like, man, LSU or Texas A&M is going to win the conference and they're going to have a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. I don't think anybody is really fearful of either one of these teams right now.
Yeah, it's still, everybody is still Georgia. Everybody's still Georgia, really. And we know they're flawed too, but everybody's still Georgia. And then I think that next tier is Texas, Alabama, Tennessee. And then I think you get to Ole Miss, LSU, Texas A&M.
Yeah, you guys tell me this because, Dunaway, you brought up that second half and the 30, how many points Wisconsin gave up to USC. It's really hard with all the parity. Like, I don't even see teams play a full 4 quarters. Like, I'll see a great half out of a team, and then they won't. It's like nobody can have a full game. Like, even going back to Georgia last Saturday night, the first half was flawless, at least defensively. And then, the second half, I just – Alabama was so good defensively in the first half in Knoxville, and then they were that bad in the second half.
Yeah, and that's Georgia's a great example. So bad first half against Alabama, so good second half against Alabama, so good first half against Texas, so bad second half against Texas. Yeah. And so I think you could say that about a lot of teams. I mean, you can even go down in the standings to an Auburn and see how good they played against Oklahoma, and yet they still find a way to win. How good they played against Missouri, to lose. How good they played against Missouri, relatively speaking to Missouri, and still found a way to lose.
All right, speaking of Auburn, it's another game you got played right there, Lance, at lanceslive.com. Chris Lowe confirming, if you missed it earlier, Pete Thelma reported that Hugh Freeze was battling food poisoning, did not travel with the team to Lexington, will travel by himself there. I say by himself, not somebody's going to fly the plane. I don't think he's got his pilot's license, but you know what I mean. Quarantined on the way up. Chris Lowe says he has spoken to him. Hugh Freeze 100% intends to coach tonight. so should be on the sidelines for a game where both Lance of these teams are desperate. You're playing it at lanceslight.com. Kentucky, a 1.5-point favorite this morning in the Bluegrass at MyBookie.ag, a total of 44, 645 ESPN.
Yeah, and this is not a great spot for Auburn, just as a dog, just outright. You look at since 2020, and I know you were amazed when I brought this up last week. They had played 25 games as a dog since 2020. Now they've played 26. This will be their 27th, but they're 3-23 as a dog. They're just a slight dog in this game. Kentucky's offense has been that bad, but Kentucky 12th nationally right now in total defense, only giving up 283 yards per game. Auburn is going to have to find a way to manufacture some offense.
Okay, and I'm just looking at losses here. Even forget the scoreboard. Who is the better team, Auburn or Oklahoma?
I think Auburn is the better team, but it's marginally better.
Yeah. It's a push.
Auburn, Arkansas. To me, Auburn, and on that day, looked like a better team, but they just found a way to lose that game. Missouri.
With a healthy Taylon Green, I think Arkansas is the better team.
Yeah, Missouri. I mean, I thought Auburn outplayed Missouri last week. They let a guy come back from the hospital and lead them to 2 game-winning drives to beat them. They're finding a way to lose. And I don't know if you can overcome that, right? I mean, if you get into a rut of just finding ways to lose football games, then you lose this football game. But I think on paper, Auburn's a better team. But for some reason, they continue to just find different crazy ways to lose a football game.
Before we get to our final game of the day, JohnstonRVCenter.com. That's who brings you the show. I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Always online, Johnston RV Center. I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Travel trailers as low as $145 a month. Fifth wheel, savings $45,000 or more. So great time to get to Johnston RV Center, JohnstonRVCenter.com. Also, Champy's world famous fried chicken, Jimmy D.
That's right. Before we talk about the game of the week, San Jose State, Fresno State on True TV, I'll remind you that the truth when it comes
I have a play on that game.
The truth about great Southern fried chicken is our friend Sterling at Champy's Chicken, champy'schicken.com, Highway 119 in Alabaster. Go by and say hi to him, even for lunch, weekdays, Monday through Friday.
You have a play on this one too, Lance. Cincinnati is at Colorado, 9:15 ESPN. They'll shut it down for the night there. 6.5-point favorite is Colorado there in Boulder, total of 57. I never dreamt this game would have this type of meaning in the Big 12 at this point in the season, but here we go tonight.
Boy, it can mean so much more. You go back 2 weeks ago where Colorado has a late lead against Kansas State in Boulder. They hold on there. And if Cincinnati, you look at a 5-2 Bearcat team that Scott Satterfield's done a really good job with, they blew a 29-6 second half lead to Pittsburgh, who looked amazing on Thursday night, and they missed a last-second field goal at Texas Tech to take that game to overtime. So this game could look a lot different. Still is one of the better games of the night slate, especially when you're talking about late night there. This number's moved a little bit, though. You look at Colorado under Deion Sanders. He is the second best coach at covering right now in college football, 12-6-1 against the number, with a minimum of 19 games. There's only 2 coaches that have a better record. They both have Alabama ties.
Kirk Cignetti.
Yep.
Has been a covering machine. And the other guy with an Alabama tie, that's on a positive or a negative?
A positive?
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's necessarily a University of Alabama. It's just
Dabo Swinney. No, that is a University of Alabama tie.
We love this guy.
Oh, John Sumrall.
John Sumrall.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are kind of the Mount Rushmore of coaching covers. It's Kirk Cignetti. What a random group too. Prime Time and John Sumrall.
Yeah. What's crazy is that John Sumrall has moved to we love this guy, and he's the first name we call out. We love this guy, John Sumrall.
That guy's going to be a superstar. He's got a tough game today. Our buddy Lauren Sisler is going to be on the sideline in Denton, but Tulane, North Texas, ESPN2. I don't know how many people will be watching that game, but that'll be a fun game.
I laughed last night. I was talking to my daughter, my oldest daughter down at Southlands, and they've got homecoming. And she goes, it should be an easy win. We play ULM. And I was like, don't let your Uncle Lance hear you say that.
Hey, they are 7-point favorites. I took a
I
look
know.
at that game, and I wanted to back the Warhawks just because I am pulling hard for Bryant Vincent, but I stayed away.
Yeah.
But South's the 7-point favorite, or you?
Yeah, I was surprised at that too, Dunaway. I looked at that point spread and I was like, you got to be kidding me. South is that big a favorite over ULM?
And it's not like me, right? The people in Vegas, they pay attention to other things than just the uniforms,
Yes.
right?
They do. I do think there is something to people still doubt La Monroe. Like now they're on the road. They're playing a team that can score. People are looking for a reason to fade La Monroe right now.
All right. Thank you for joining us for the show, Lance. You got 15 picks, lanceslock.com. You're about to go live over there too and talk a little bit more about the games?
Yeah, I don't know. I got somebody in town, so
Okay.
I don't know if I am going to be rolling out with that right now. But yes, 15 plays available. Our Big 12 game of the year. Jump on board with that. So excited about it. We've had a really good week, 6-2 so far in college football. So we continue to win. Lance'sLock.com. There's a free play up right now. But again, Big 12 game of the year, Lance'sLock.com.
Dunaway, enjoy your Saturday. Lance, enjoy your Saturday. Everyone else, we'll see you 9 o'clock post-game. TheBarnAuburn.com and CoverCrimson.com. TheBarnAuburn.com, CoverCrimson.com. Have a great Saturday. We'll see you Monday morning, 7 a.m. for Dunaway and Lugan.